black storm coming. See the lightning strike. Black people rising.
Johnson's other intimate friend, Edgar Hoover, also stood for the opposite of what Johnson was trying to achieve. Hoover was a white supremacist at the head of a white FBI. To him, black civil rights leaders were left-wing agitators, probably in the pay of the Kremlin.
In the eyes of their Soviet comrades, the communists in this country have a vital role in the march toward world enslavement. They are, by Nikita Khrushchev's own description, a valuable arm of the international conspiracy against God and freedom. And the sooner every American faces this fact, the stronger our position will be. We must shed our complacency and aggressively meet this challenge.
Under Hoover, the FBI had become a political police force, using bugging, telephone tapping, burglary, and forgery, all in the name of internal security. In August 1963, Hoover had set up a special unit to watch Martin Luther King. It reported that the American Communist Party had planted 2 senior and secret members in Dr. King's entourage, where they had become close advisors. One was a Jewish lawyer named Stanley Levison. The other was a former Young Socialist, Clarence Jones.
Was I ever, in fact, a member, a card-carrying member of the Communist Party? The answer is no. It's not as if Martin King could be led by the nose by a Stanley Levison or by a Clarence Jones. That's absolutely nonsense. Martin King, to Hoover, was a Negro that he couldn't control. He was, in the classic case, the uppity, arrogant nigger.
Without providing any evidence of communist infiltration, Hoover had persuaded the Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, to authorize telephone taps on Dr. King and the 2 subversives he was supposed to be consorting with. Kennedy agreed to a trial period of 1 month's secret surveillance. By the time Robert Kennedy's authorization ran out, Johnson was president. Hoover quietly kept the taps in place. The watch on King was codenamed Operation Zorro. An assistant director, William Sullivan, was put in charge of Hoover's special unit. A 9-hour meeting produced an expanded action plan. It ranged from the use of hidden microphones in hotel rooms used by King to the planting of prostitutes in his offices as secretaries. There was no discussion of contacts with communists, a field of inquiry the FBI had quickly abandoned as unrewarding. Instead, they decided to focus on King's private life in the hope, and this is a quote from the record, of exposing King as an immoral opportunist. Arthur Murtagh, then a field agent in the FBI's Atlanta office, was a member of the team.
Hoover wanted it done. I don't think there was any justification of it at all. There wasn't anything. We had no information that King was in any way un-American or in violation of the law. The Bureau was interested in destroying him because Hoover wanted him destroyed.
The FBI's operation now moved from Washington to Atlanta. There, King's organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, was placed under 24-hour surveillance. In December 1963, FBI agents set up shop in an unoccupied building on the opposite side of the street. Everyone entering and leaving was photographed, including King, who was to be followed wherever he went in America. The agents involved all knew the objective: to gather evidence Hoover could use to destroy King as a civil rights leader.
They started off hating him because he was black. He was I hate to use the phrase, but he was a nigger. The agents that I was working with on this particular squad had been brought up to believe that all black people were dangerous, that they were dishonest, that they lacked character, that they were sexual perverts, all kinds of hatred.
Murtagh says it was the most extensive surveillance operation ever undertaken by the FBI. Inside the Bureau's Atlanta headquarters, 10 agents assigned to the case were given their own segregated area. In one room, agents recorded all telephone calls to and from King's offices and his home on nearby Johnson Street. In another room, again according to Murtagh, Hoover's G-men busied themselves by dreaming up imaginative schemes for the entrapment of the Reverend King. Whether the new president knew what his friend Hoover was up to, we do not know. What is clear is that while Hoover was trying to sabotage progress on civil rights, Johnson was doing everything he could to promote it.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Umoja Circle. My name is Keith Smokey Johnson. I'd like to welcome you to this current topic that I think you will find interesting. It's part of a series of discussions that I'm putting together the last couple of months. Basically, what started me on down this path of showing these types of shows and videos that I've been collecting about the civil rights movement and some of the other movements that went along, that America has always been a divisive country. Because I'm hearing that a lot in today's media and by a lot of people who really don't know history, but always making the statement that America has never been this divisive before, you know, when it comes to what's going on in our current political arena. But I'm here to tell you that America, especially when it comes to people who look like me, people of African descent, we've always had this sense of divisiveness to us as people of African descent. Before I go on, my name is Keith Smokey Johnson, and this is the Umoja Circle. And the purpose of the Umoja Circle is to correct errors where errors are found and to introduce facts where we find that so many people are working on fiction. As you can see from that video that opened the show, this is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about what the FBI did about the civil rights movement led by Brother Martin Luther King. And as you can tell, it wasn't something that was neutral. It wasn't the fact that you had a President Johnson who was willing to pass the Civil Rights Act. You had pushback. Always when we make progress in America, whether it was after the Civil War, when you had black people entering the political arena, you had the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, like I talked about in the last show, last month, there was pushback. You had forces that did not want to let go of the status quo. They want to maintain white supremacy and white dominance. And it still exists to this day in some form, and we must be aware of that. That's where the divisiveness I'm talking about comes in. There's a history behind it, okay? History always puts a light on the present moment. So if you want, you just can't see the things and events happening right now without putting the light of history on it to see what brought it to that point and what fingerprints were placed along the way so that we can make honest and accurate decisions in the present moment. In fact, the word I talked about in previous shows during this series, that if you use the word present, if you take the PRE and separate it from the SENT, you'll see that the present is nothing more than the pre-sent moment, sent by decisions and choices and historical events to this moment when you're dealing with what's happening in front of you. If you don't understand that past, you will never understand this future and the present of the things that are happening right in front of your face. So if people are saying that this time has been divisive, they're not knowing the history, because it's always been divisive, as I'm showing these series of talks that I'm doing for this is about the third month and the third series of discussions. And what I'm going to be talking about is how the United States government dealt with the civil rights movement. When I'm talking about the law enforcement portion of the United States government under Herbert Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI. There's a book, I want to bring it up. This is based on what I'm going to be talking about. It's actually out there. If you want to read it, if you want to know, I just don't get things from the internet haphazardly. I do researches, and this is one of them. There's many books. It's in public record, but this is one of the books that you're going to find interested if you want to find out about this thing called the Cointelpro Program, which means Counter CO Intelligence Program, established by the FBI to do things for all people that they consider subversive in their eyes. Okay, a threat to America, and Martin Luther King was one of those people, just to get the right to vote, galvanizing black people together, and they saw it as a threat. Or the gentleman who I'm going to kind of focus on in this segment, J. Edgar Hoover. You see, as black men and women throughout our history in America, whenever one of us stood up as if we had the right to do so, and we do as American citizens, and we look America straight in the eye and say that we have as much right as Martin Luther King and other civil rights activists say as American citizens to be treated the same under the law. And for some reason, then America attacks that individual because those words of "we have the same right" and "we're not getting right" seem to them, or is interpreted as us, as people like Martin Luther King or Malcolm, or going back to Marcus Garvey, are attacking the American structure. Yeah, the American structure that was segregated, racist, white supremacy in its foundation. So when people talked out about it, it was attacked by the status quo or the government itself. Not all aspects of the government. During the Civil Rights Movement, at least Johnson wanted to pass the Civil Rights Act, but his friend, okay, the director of the FBI, was not having it. He was a white supremacist and racist. That's why black people always have questioned organizations that what we call systematic racism, because it's built in to some of the structure that a lot of other Americans, especially white America, take for granted. But we have been attacked for generations by the same institutions that were created to protect us and serve us. But black people who were paying their taxes were basically attacked and surveilled by agencies like the FBI. Let me go on to a next image I want to show. And this is the man that I'm talking about. His name is J. Edgar Hoover. Let's go on to the next one. I want to show you how he got his start. He was a government official, okay, part of the system, who served as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, from 1924 until his death in 1972. He built the agency into a highly effective and occasionally controversial, I like to use these weak words, controversial. It was illegal what they did, arm of the federal law enforcement system, the criminal justice system. Federal, these are the federal police, in other words, okay? And citizens, we supposedly have certain rights, but you will see as I go along under this Cointelpro program, black people were violated by the same system. I just don't say it. This is the kind of stuff that we must learn as people of African descent about our history. Let's go on to the next statement. Like I said, you must understand that this misguided ideas about African Americans, like they said in the video, you heard, which enlisted white Americans to create a horrible apartheid social system, okay, after enslavement called, Jim Crow segregation, and along with a pseudoscientific belief system about white racial superiority called eugenics, which was strongly entrenched in white American society during the 1910s, 20s, 30s, and 40s. This is the environment that J. Edgar Hoover grew up in, was born into, that shaped his thinking about black people, that white people was, this eugenics movement, the only time the eugenics movement it came out of a pseudoscientific theory that came out of social Darwinism in the late 1800s. And it said that there was that white Americans, white people from Europe and all over the world, as they were going out and colonizing all these brown, red, black people, who had civilizations for thousands of years, whether it was in China, the Boxer Rebellion, or here in America with enslavement, or in South America with ancient people, or this country, or attacking Mexico in the Mexican Revolution. They thought there was a divine right, or taking native people land. It was taught through this type of thinking that it was white superiority. Even if you were on the lower rung of the social economic social structure of any of these systems, especially here in America, you were considered superior to these brown, black, and other folks. This is that eugenics kind of thinking, and J. Edgar Hoover was part of that. Let's go on real quickly. In 1924, that's when he took over as director. He was in that office for 48 years. It was the height of and actually it was in the height of the Marcus Garvey movement around the late 1918, 1919, 20 period. And the person, and Marcus Garvey and his UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association that he established. And let me let you know a little bit about Marcus Garvey. Let's go on to the next. I'm going to show you that who Marcus Garvey was. I got an image of him. This is Marcus Garvey. And in late 19-teens, he established, just like Martin Luther King, he was from Jamaica, and he went all over he traveled throughout America and throughout South America, and he established this UNIA so that black people can do for themselves. He was about concentrating our wealth. He was about Pan-Africanism, that we're Africans no matter where we are. That's just where the boat dropped us, whether it was in South America or in Cuba or in America, okay? He influenced people like Malcolm X, whose mother and father were the Garveyites, and they were followers of Garvey. She was sent to an insane asylum. The father, who was the preacher of Malcolm X, Reverend Little, was found murdered because of what he was saying and quoting Malcolm X. Many of the young people in the Black Power movement were influencers. A lot of the reggae people were Rastafarians were influenced by Marcus Garvey. At its peak, Marcus Garvey's UNIA boasted membership of approximately 6 million black people, okay, all over the diaspora. Not only in America, but throughout the Caribbean, South America, there were offices of the UNIA. He tried to start his own steamship line and all these things of self-sufficiency. But that went against the status quo. And people like J. Edgar Hoover, who was a young FBI agent who was assigned to investigate Marcus Garvey. And of course, he claimed that they most likely were communists at the time. This Bolshevik revolution was going on. And he arrested Marcus Garvey, and Marcus Garvey was convicted of some kind of mail fraud, which was never proven. And he went to prison in the federal penitentiary in Atlanta, okay, was sentenced to 5 years. He stayed 2 years. His sentence was commuted because their evidence was weak, but he still suffered. And what did they do to Marcus Garvey? A black man who was bringing black people together, which people like J. Edgar Hoover, young J. Edgar Hoover, thought it was a threat to the status quo of America. Again, stand up and say that we have the right as citizens to anything that other citizens had. Well, that went against the segregation type of thinking and the eugenics kind of thinking of, black people, even though they have American citizenship by the 13th, 14th, and 15th American and the right to vote, they still were not equal to white people. And he was deported back to Jamaica, then eventually made it to England, where he died, I think, impoverished. Let's go on to the next idea. Now, how does that have to do with Martin Luther King? Well, you know this story, most of you. You hear it every February. This is Sister Rosa Parks, and on the right, that's an image that was actually reenacted, for a time. I think one of the magazines, is Time or Look, or one of those magazines, to show what she had to go through just for registering people to vote or having the right. And there was a boycott, and there was a young preacher, 26-year-old, that was asked by she was a member of the Alabama NAACP, the Montgomery NAACP, and this sister would go out and register and find out information about lynches. So she was not the weak, demure type of individual that you are constantly being told that she was not. She was a brave, courageous sister, and she knew what she was going to deal with. Okay, that's who that sister is. Let's go on to the next one. And during that period of time, black people, we've always stood together. We've always protested, and this was the beginning of the Montgomery boycott. Okay, and this is what got the attention of J. Edgar Hoover. These are black folks who rather walk to prove that they have the right as citizens. The same thing Marcus Garvey was saying in the early 20th century. This is in the 1950s. We're still dealing with the same issues, and for some people, we're still dealing with it today. This is the American legacy. This is the history that people like the Republicans don't want you to know or study, not even the young white children who have to understand that the mythology of America, of the land of the free and the home of the brave, when it comes to people that look like me, or Native Americans, or even Asian Americans, because they had the Chinese Exclusion Act in the latter part of the 1900s, of the 1800s, that prevented people of Asian descent or Chinese descent from having their full American citizens' right. But we focused on black people. This is what we had to deal with, okay? And also, I talked about Marcus Garvey earlier. He's the one who arrested and brought charges against Marcus Garvey. It was in 1924, you remember earlier, that he became the director. He benefited from that. That's how he got promoted to the director of the FBI, and he pushed his racist ideologies for the 48 years that he was in office. This is what I'm talking about, that America has always been divisive. But we had, as black people, only thing we wanted to do was to be left alone and be free. We had to deal with this. Let's go on to another image, okay? Now, this is another part of Martin Luther King. He came on the radar during the 1956 and 57 boycott in Montgomery. He was a young preacher, 26 years old, young. Most of the people that always protested and did things were the young. They were always motivated by the right to stand up and speak their truth. Many of the people that we look as icons of the civil rights movement, they weren't the elders that we see today or the ones who become ancestors. They were young men and women in their teens and in their 20s. That's the source. And people like J. Edgar Hoover, and using the vast power of the FBI, put them on the map. On the day of this March on Washington, on August 28, 1963, the FBI Hoover had a meeting at the basement of the FBI headquarters, not too far from that. We all talk about your little boys and little girls standing there, but the system, the federal police, the FBI put a target on him. Let's go on real quickly to the next one. Okay, these are the kind of things that Martin Luther King, that the FBI saw as a threat. He was galvanizing people together, okay? He was galvanizing people together. This is what J. Edgar Hoover thought as a threat to the status quo or white supremacy. Okay, he would say it as white supremacy, but this is how it was for hundreds of years, where white dominated over these black, brown people, especially black people. This is just one of the notes that were found in what was called the Cointelpro, when the Cointelpro Program was brought to light in 1971. What I'm talking about is also public record, and this is just one of the things that authorized in 1957 when I said that the FBI put Martin Luther King on the radar, and he was persecuted ever since. But it got even more when he became more popular by the 1963 Civil Rights March on Washington. Let's go on to the next one. Now, this is the man that was assigned by J. Edgar Hoover to push the Cointelpro Program. You know, and what did he say? We must mark him, which is Martin Luther King now, if we have not done so before, as the most dangerous Negro of the future in this nation from the standpoint of communism. They'll use these communism nonsense to justify their illegal acts. The Negroes and the national security of America. They use these concepts. You hear it even today from the Republican Party. You hear them saying left-wing or woke left-wing ideology, and they try to put these terms to justify their behavioral pattern that are not processed. Now, the next show, I'm going to talk about how this thing was exposed, this Cointelpro program, this FBI illegal. Now, this is illegal. The FBI should not have been doing what they did to Martin Luther King. They sent him notes. They as you could tell by the, if you remember in the video, they surveilled him. They put bugs on his phone, and he was surveilled every day for years. Do you know that the pressure was so intense on Martin that he had to be hospitalized for 8 times during that 13-year period from the Montgomery phase to his death in 1968. It wasn't the fact that he was criminal. What was he doing? They're saying that he had the right to speak for black people, that we had the right as citizens to have the same rights as citizens to do what was do that anybody else did. Even though America said things in paper that all men are created equal, that was not the reality on the ground. Even though there was such things as the Voting Rights Act, that was not right. That was not applicable in reality. This is what I want to let you understand. The work still has to be done, even to this day. There was some improvement, yes, but the ideology is still there. Right now, I'm going to leave it, and these are the 2 books that I'm going to talk about. This book today. The next show, you'll hear about this Cointel papers. This is actually the papers that were discovered in 1971. But until the next show, I'm going to leave it right here. I'm going to stop it and say peace, Hotep. Till next time, bye-bye.